Hello and welcome. I'm Arnold Naidu sitting in for Riz Khan. On the show today, Eritrean President Isaias Afwerki. He came to power following a 3-decade struggle for independence and has been the leader of the East African nation since it gained independence 17 years ago. Don't forget, we want to include your views on the show, and you can reach us by email and SMS text, and those numbers are there at the bottom of your screen. Eritrea declared independence from Ethiopia in 1991, a move that was formally ratified in a referendum 2 years later. A subsequent border war with Ethiopia claimed more than 150,000 lives between 1998 and 2000. Although an agreement was signed, the issue continues to be a source of tension between the two countries, and the long-running border dispute remains unresolved. Joining me now from the Eritrean capital Asmara is President Isaias Afwerki. Mr. President, on the occasion of the country's 17th independence anniversary, in your view, what are the achievements of Eritrea?
Well, I would like to first of all start by saying the border dispute is resolved. It's not unresolved. The decision of the Boundary Commission 6 years ago, its decision to demarcate the border virtually and quit has closed the chapter. So I would say there is no border issue, there is no conflict, there is no tension in the first place. To come to your question, 17 years of achievement in this country has been to, first of all, rebuild the country that was devastated by a very long and destructive war, to start to build a nation, put in place an infrastructure, create an environment for development, promote social programs in education and health. 17 years, despite the challenge and obstacles, has been an exciting experience for this country and this nation. And we can talk about achievements, and that may take a long time, but I can assure you Eritrea has achieved remarkably in the economic sector, in the social sector, and we can now say we are embarking on a new era where we would be in a position to exploit the natural endowments and resources of this country to give more impetus for our developmental programs.
Okay, I want to talk about that, the exploitation of natural resources, a little later in the show, but I just want to get back to that border issue. Now, that agreement, which was agreed to by the Border Commission, has not been implemented, has it?
It is implemented. If you can understand what virtual demarcation means, virtual demarcation has closed the chapter. Our border is demarcated more than any other border within this continent, and you can assume that the border issue, the conflict, is resolved by this virtual demarcation.
Now, what are the chances of Eritrea normalizing relations with Ethiopia?
When our territory is occupied, despite the agreements, the decision given by the Boundary Commission, and now, as I indicated earlier, when we have the border demarcated virtually, the presence of occupation forces makes it impossible for any normalization of relationships.
There are concerns, and these concerns have been expressed in the United Nations, that there could be more fighting between Eritrea and Ethiopia. This
is mere speculation. Those who would like to distract the attention from the real issues would raise this matter time and again, but I don't see any ground for any eruption of tension or confrontation.
You know, I want to get to Eritrea's relationship with the United States. There have been accusations from the United States that Eritrea is a state sponsor of terrorism, that you support the Islamic insurgents in Somalia. Does that worry you?
How many times have we heard this, and how many lies have been told the last 5 or 8 years? And I think this is compromising again and again the credibility of the administration in Washington, and these shameless lies repeated again and again have no weight whatsoever in what the United States, as far as Eritrea's linkage with terrorism, which has become an impossible fact to prove on the part of the United States, but you can hear these lies again and again, and I'm not surprised. We're not worried about these accusations.
But the United States has also said that it could label Eritrea a state sponsor of terrorism. That could have grave consequences for your country.
Not at all. No one is worried about these lies, baseless accusations, and you can imagine how many governments, countries, and individuals have been accused of linkage with terrorism when there are no facts on the ground. It's the same story as the weapons of mass destruction. It's the same pattern and trendy behavior we have witnessed all along, and no one in this country is worried about these accusations.
You know, one of the accusations from the United States is that Eritrea has supplied arms to the Islamic Courts Union in Somalia. Have you supplied arms to that group?
It looks like you're talking on behalf of the United States and the administration in Washington, and your list of questions seem to be provided by, I don't know, someone in Langley or the administration in Washington. I'm not bothered about these accusations. I can assure you these lies will be repeated again and again with no leverage on the ground.
Okay, let's talk about your recent visit to Iran. What did that trip achieve?
It's part of the long-standing relationship with the Islamic Republic of Iran. The early 60s, 70s, the present Islamic Republic of Iran and the support, the moral support, the struggle for liberation in this country got from the Iranian Revolution has been a landmark in the history of this country and bilateral ties with Iran, and there was nothing new in this relationship. We can imagine going back 3-4 decades when Ayatollah Khamenei was during Friday prayers praying for Eritrea and the freedom of Eritrea. And this visit comes as an expression of solidarity between Eritrea and Iran.
Did you sign any agreements with the Iranians?
Oh, about 3-4 agreements of cooperation.
And what are you going to be cooperating in what fields?
All fields: agriculture, manufacturing, mining, trade, name it.
Okay, now let's look at the domestic political situation in Eritrea. When are elections going to be held in Eritrea? There were elections scheduled for 2001. They didn't take place. When is that going to happen?
What elections?
Elections in Eritrea.
We'll see what the elections in the United States will bring about, and we will wait for about 3-4 decades until we see genuine natural situations emerge in Eritrea.
You're saying Eritrea is going to wait 3 or 4 decades before it holds elections?
Maybe more, who knows?
But isn't
that,
it...
of course, depending on what you call elections, what you believe in elections, what you think in terms of elections. If you think elections are like elections we witnessed in Ethiopia, the elections in Zimbabwe, the elections in Jordan, the elections in Morocco, the elections in Kuwait, if you talk about those elections and the elections in Iraq and the elections in Afghanistan, like the process where the lawyer Jirga was brought about to form a government, if you're talking about these types of elections, I can tell you it may never happen. It may take decades.
Well, aren't elections a central element of a democracy? And if you don't have elections, then you don't have a democracy.
It depends on what you mean by democracy. If you really understand what democracy means, and if you're talking about genuine elections, that's another issue. If you're telling me that the democracy and the elections we have witnessed the last 5 or 10 years, promoted by the United States as a separate agenda to serve its interests in a number of regions of this world, I can tell you these are not elections for us. This is not democracy for us. If you mean democracy is polarizing society vertically, that's not democracy for us. And these days it become very fashionable for people to talk about democracy when society is divided and polarized along ethnic, religious lines, and we are not party to that kind of democracy.
Well, are you prepared to tolerate any kind of opposition in Eritrea?
What kind of opposition? Agents hired by the CIA from Langley, or opposition from inside, or any kind of opposition?
There was something of a crackdown against the opposition by the Eritreans, by your government in 2001. Journalists were in prison.
Not at all. Not at all. You are disinformed. There has never been any opposition in this country. This is a total lie. And if you're talking about a political process, that is a different matter. If you're talking an opposition that has been fabricated and created by Langley, then you would call that an opposition. I would not call that an opposition.
Well, but you did close down the free press, and you know, just to get to some specifics, there were 2 Eritreans who worked for the US Embassy in Asmara who were imprisoned. They have not been put on trial yet.
You're coming back again with the same list of questions provided to you by the State Department or the CIA, and you're trying to make this issue a political issue in the name of Al Jazeera International. I can assure you, freedom of press, if you mean the press that is financed by conglomerates in the world, financed by military industry in the world, if you think the financing and managing of media, the CNN, BBC, or even Jazeera International, by special interest groups is freedom of press, I can tell you we're not party to that kind of freedom of press.
All right. Well, you know, let's look at food aid in Eritrea. You adopted a policy some time ago of self-reliance. In fact, you kicked out most of the aid agencies in Eritrea, with the exception of a few that are still working there. Is Eritrea now self-sufficient in its food supply?
No, I wouldn't talk about that. Whether Eritrea is food self-sufficient or not is not the issue. If anyone is interested in providing food aid and handouts, give the 7 or 6 million children in Ethiopia the food aid you have, give the Somalis in the Ogaden the food aid you have, and anyone interested in providing aid could provide aid to the Somalis that are being suffocated and strangulated by the presence of occupation forces. We are not in a position to talk about food aid. We are not taking handouts. We advise those who are interested in trying to use aid as politics and go give that aid to places that need it.
But you have rejected millions of dollars in aid.
We don't want to be spoon-fed. We would like to live on our toil and be enabled to secure food for our people. That's what we do, and we don't want to be crippled by food aid that is linked to an agenda of dependency, and we've overcome this by denying and rejecting food aid intended for crippling us.
Mr. President, I can understand that you don't want to be spoon-fed, as you say. You want to be self-reliant, you want to be self-sufficient, but there are food shortages in Asmara.
Who told you that?
Well, we just had a report from the French news agency which says there are shortages of things like bread, that people have to use ration cards to get food from state stores, that there is a black market in food supplies.
This is another fabrication. Go and talk about food shortage in Egypt, food shortage in the United States. Ask people in the streets of the United States who are compromising, who are even sacrificing their breakfast, their dinner, or their supper because the food supplies there are not enough, because prices are going high. And we would like for those who are interested to address this issue look otherwise. And people telling you that food shortage in Asmara are very unique under the circumstance, that would be a total fabrication.
Looking at the future of the Eritrean economy, there is a contract that you have signed with a Canadian company to exploit Eritrea's gold reserves. I want to look at an email that we received from one of our viewers in Connecticut here in the United States, and this is the email from Rahel Sebtu, and the email asks, you recently stated gold deposits in Eritrea were substantial and that production in the Bisha project would begin in 2009. How much gold are we talking about?
This is not a new discovery. The gold reserves in this country and reserves in other mineral resources have been discovered 70, 80 years ago by the Italian colonialists when they did a complete, a survey of the whole country. We're rediscovering. We're just preparing ourselves for exploiting these substantial resources of gold and other minerals. And at the moment, we're not talking about gold. We would not like to talk about this. We would like to, first of all, put in place a very solid basis and a foundation for the growth and development of our economy. Then comes gold and other resources.
When you talk about a solid basis and foundation for your economy, what are you talking about? Because I saw a World Bank report which says that the Eritrean army actually accounts for 11% of your workforce, of your labor force.
The World Bank can say anything. They can fabricate figures. We witnessed this happen not only in Eritrea but elsewhere. I wouldn't take World Bank figures seriously. We have a state of war. For the last 10 years we've been involved, we've been forced to mobilize the majority of the young in this country, and that's a duty. We have to defend this country, and we're using that resource for putting in place a solid foundation for the economy of this country. If you have figures talking about 10%, 20% of our economy going to the army or to our defense, this could be a distortion of figures by the World Bank or other financial institutions of an agenda to tell the outside world that the economy is not healthy in this country.
When you talk about the mobilization of the country's youth, are you not concerned that there has been a major exodus of youth from Eritrea to other parts of the world?
Not at all. Think about the 10 million Mexicans who are crossing the Mexican border to the United States. Think about Africa from west to north to south moving towards Europe. What do you call that? We don't have that kind of phenomenon in this country. There is an orchestrated sabotage to mislead people, to disinform young, to leave this country, and that is not happening. The numbers coming in the reports of a number of agencies of the United Nations are distorted figures. Nationals from other countries are said to be Eritreans, and that is a deliberate distortion of the reality of the youth in this country.
Okay, Mr. President, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you for joining us.
You're most welcome.
And thank you for being with us. Riz Khan is back next week, and on Monday's show he gets an inside look at the oil trading industry.
Strategically vital to the stability of the region and the wider global agenda, Eritrea is struggling to balance the needs of its people with the perceived threats to the nation. We have a rare interview with the president, the man responsible for steering the country towards success or disaster. Mr. President, thank you very much for joining us on Talk to Al Jazeera. Mr. President, in December, the United Nations imposed sanctions on Eritrea for what they say was supporting armed groups like Al-Shabaab in Somalia. Do you feel as though you've been unfairly victimized?
No, it's a mockery of justice and history. In our political culture, we've never believed, and we don't believe, religion is an alternative or substitute for political, social, economic problems in any one country or any society. We've never entertained the idea of Sharia being a solution, or Islam being a solution, as many may like to appreciate. How possibly can one blame Eritrea for sympathizing or supporting one group against the other in Somalia? We've never done that.
Al-Shabaab themselves claim that your defense ministry visited them. The African Union has complained about your activities in Somalia, as has the United Nations. Are you saying that they are all lying?
Where are these evidences in the first place? We never went. We didn't went. The French have 2 kidnapped hostages there. They asked our good officers to see if we can do anything. We never promised, we never wanted to get involved in this, but because there was that initiative, we wanted to contact with everybody in Somalia.
So are you therefore saying that those Al-Shabaab members, the African Union and the United Nations are therefore all lying?
We believe Al-Shabaab are Somalis in the first place, whether they are radicals, moderates, whether they're part of the Islamic course or not. We believe every Somali should be involved in an inclusive political process.
But why would the United Nations and the African Union say that this is what you are doing, that you're supporting?
Where are these evidences in the first place? What are they saying? That's where I come to say this is a mockery of justice.
You talk about religion. A lot of people raise your support with Al-Shabaab, you being a Christian leader, that being a Muslim organization.
It's nonsensical.
And it's not to fight the proxy war against
This is a joke.
Ethiopia?
This is a joke. I don't want to blame anyone for what has been said here or there. What are the evidences? How can you explain the fact that Eritrea supports this or that radical Islamic?
Are you using Somalia as a battleground to fight Ethiopia?
It's not a battleground with Ethiopia. This border issue was a senseless conflict instigated by the United States in the first place, for the record. And we went to arbitration, and arbitration was done almost 8 years now, 2002, and the decision was taken. And that decision is blocked by the United States. It's not blocked by Ethiopia. Ethiopia does not have the resource and the means to block any decision of arbitration and implementation. So it's a cover-up for the failure of the misguided policies of the United States in the Horn of Africa for the last 20 years.
So would you, if Ethiopia were to withdraw from Badme, that's the border town that you are referring to, if they had to withdraw from that, would you then take this country off the war footing?
It's not a problem with Ethiopia. We've never had any problems with Ethiopia. We worked with these people for almost 2 decades to remove a government in Ethiopia. And we wanted to see a relationship between Eritrea and Ethiopia based on mutual respect and commonality of interest. And we worked for decades for that. And now we're talking about a misguided policy of the United States that wants to create crisis here, political problems here and there, and micromanage those problems.
Okay, you say that that's your relationship with Ethiopia. Please explain to me what your relationship is with Sudan. You have alleged links to GEM as well as the SLA.
That is again a distortion of history. It's a deliberate distortion of facts.
The Sudanese government says that it stopped GEM fighters from coming into your country, that you've got camps within.
No Sudanese government or official has said that, because they can't prove that. And it's said in the name of Sudanese officials and to the Sudanese government. This is a deliberate distortion of facts.
Who then was responsible for pulling GEM out of the peace talks with the government?
Not at all. No, never. That never happened. In Abuja, when negotiations were underway, we said this is not a solution. There has to be an inclusive and comprehensive political process in the Sudan to address the issues of Southern Sudan, Eastern Sudan, Central Sudan, Northern Sudan, and Darfur. We've never entertained an idea of intervening this way or that way to support one group against the other, not at all.
All those allegations leveled against Eritrea about being one of the main backers behind destabilizing this region, destabilizing the Horn of Africa. Is that not true?
Who is destabilizing the Horn of Africa? Who has been supporting warlords in Somalia for the last 20 years? Who has intervened in Somalia, invaded Somalia? Who has wanted to put governments from outside? We have 3 strategic interventions the last 8 or 10 years where people have tried to impose governments from outside. None of these governments has worked. This is destabilizing Somalia, and by destabilizing Somalia, you destabilize the region.
You are friends with both Iran and Israel. How do you balance the two?
And that is another joke, because why would the United States impose arms embargo on Eritrea, a small country with very limited resources, and not impose sanctions on the alleged role of Iran in the region? How can you possibly appreciate the logic behind this position of the United States?
Okay, maybe you can clear up for us Iran's role in this region.
There is no role for Iran in this region. Eritrea is not for sale. Eritrea is not for sale. Not for Iran, not for Israel, not for the United States, for nobody.
If Eritrea is not for sale, then how do you justify providing arms for Hamas? And how do you justify providing arms
we don't even have any diplomatic relations with any Palestinian organization.
No, but you're allowing Iran to supply arms through Hamas, through you. You also...
Where are the evidences? Do we need weapons from Iran? If we want to give it to anyone, we don't need weapons from Iran. We have enough, we have more than we need. We can arm 3-4 governments. We don't need weapons from Iran. We do not have the political will to work on behalf of anyone in this region, never.
And if it's not political will, then what is it? Because they are going through you, through Sudan.
There is no Iranian presence in this region.
But there is Iranian presence. They're helping you off a sub, and they've got a military base there. They're helping you with your oil refinery.
I would invite you to go to Assab and see. There is no refinery there. This is a joke. There is no refinery there.
Okay, then the evidence, as well as the Israeli planes that stopped arms shipment to Sudan, where they got Iranian Revolutionary Guards.
Where are the evidences? Where are the evidences? Can you prove to anyone that you have evidences to tell a story about Eritrea shipping arms to anywhere in the region?
You have a relationship with both Iran, though you say there's no Iranian presence, as well as Israel. How do you balance?
How can you?
So do you say you have no relationship with Iran?
Not at all. Do you think? How can you possibly logically understand this contradictory?
That's why I'm asking you.
Why would you ask? Why would you ask without evidences? It's a surprise to me. It's even a joke to me. I don't really see any logic of bringing Israel and Iran together working in Eritrea. How can possibly one sensible person understand that logic?
But that's probably raised the questions. Many political analysts believe that the next proxy war between Iran and Israel is going to take place on your soil. Are you prepared to be turned into the next Vietnam?
This is a joke. This is giving Eritrea beyond its means. These are fabrications. These are allegations without any facts to prove them on the ground. And it's sometimes a surprise why people want to sell these lies to any sensible person in the region. It doesn't make sense.
It's also quite, it's not quite, it's well documented that you are helping Iran through your Assab port, send arms to Yemen to support the Houthi fighters who are fighting the government as well as Saudi Arabia. Can you explain your actions?
It's senseless. It's senseless. Who would want to destabilize Yemen? We have all along, the last 20 years, supported the government of Ali Abdullah Saleh genuinely.
So do you deny then that you are supporting the Houthis in Yemen?
This is a fantasy in the minds of those who want to sell this idea and create a sense of threat and fear in this region so that they can manipulate it for their own agendas. There is no refinery in the first place in Assad. There is no presence for anyone. You want to go yesterday or tomorrow, you can go and see who is there and who is not there. And to assume that your allegations are facts and try to find an explanation for that assumption, I say it's crazy. It's all fabrications. We sometimes bother and wonder why all these fabrications about things that do not exist on the ground.
Is this also a fabrication? The United Nations said that you spend $200,000 to $500,000 a month supporting fighters.
Where?
In Somalia and around the region. Is that also a fabrication?
This is another joke. This is another joke.
I mean, how can your country afford that? That's from the United Nations.
It's boring. It's boring. When jokes are repeated again and again, it becomes so boring.
How do you as a country continue to afford to be on this war footing now, 20 years?
This is a fantasy. This is a fantasy on those who think we are on a war footing. It's crazy. It's an imagination of people who can only be categorized as insane, who will fantasize on things that do not exist in real terms.
If your country is not on war footing, how come there's so much repression? There's no freedom of the press, there's no freedom of speech.
I can understand where you come from, and this is again another boring joke based on fabrications.
What, can anybody leave the country when they want to?
Did you enjoy the show yesterday?
Can anybody leave the country when they want to?
Did you enjoy the show yesterday?
Can anybody leave the country when they want to?
Did you see people in the streets? Anybody can leave this country anytime.
If they can get a passport.
What is it to get a passport from a country you deserve to be a citizen for?
What about freedom of the press, freedom of the speech? Eritrea jails more journalists than any other country in the world. Why do you have to resort to this?
These are lies.
You don't jail journalists.
These are lies. These are lies of Jazeera International, deliberately distorting facts to give the impression that this country is in a war footing and so many things. Iran is here, Israel is here, we are supporting Houthis, we are supporting terrorists. You name it. You are using these lies to serve an agenda for destabilizing this region.
I would never do anything to attempt to destabilize the region. I'm trying to get to the bottom of the truth.
Lies without providing any evidences and trying to blame it on the United Nations sometimes when the United Nations has not said anything, blame it on the government of Sudan when Sudan has not said anything.
Okay, let's talk about the people who live in this country. If I can just quote these to you, the United Nations stats estimate that almost 63,000 Eritreans applied for asylum last year alone, and that 1,800 cross over every month into Sudan. Why are they leaving the country?
These are lies. These are your lies.
So people are not leaving the country? That's another United Nations estimate.
Give me the evidences. Give us the evidences. We would like to see evidences. According to those reports, the population of this country is out of town by yesterday, according to those statistics.
They're fleeing from the country. Of course, the most high-profile one you've had, the football team which disappeared in Kenya, they're seeking asylum. Those athletes in Scotland, they're also seeking asylum. So
this is news to me. It's news to me. Really? I've never heard anything like that, and I'm not bothered if people go there, if they ask for asylum here or there, if they're looking for jobs in the United States, in Europe. Why would I bother about that?
One of the reasons that many of the people leave is because of the indefinite military service for both men and for women, and for the very harsh conditions and the fact that you can never leave. Why is there this?
This is another lie. Again, another lie. It's compromising your credibility as a media outlet and coming up with a pack of lies and trying to prove to them, to anyone, by putting them as facts on the ground and trying to give the impression that these are things that exist in the real world. Israel is here. Who is not here? Everybody
Israel is here. They've got a military base.
Everybody is here. Iran is here. I mean, how can you possibly imagine people to trust and believe what you tell them when you're talking about lies that do not exist in
Every single question I've put to you is backed up with a lot of research and a lot of facts. So with respect, Mr. President, I'm just trying to find out how your country operates, because I find it a fascinating country. Please, as a journalist...
It's a good exercise for a journalist to ask questions about a number of things, but to come up with a pack of lies, a pack of fabrications, and try to prove them by putting them as very innocent questions and trying to give credibility or trying to discredit your sources. You're discrediting the sources, you're discrediting the United Nations when you come and tell things in the name of the United Nations when the United Nations has not said anything like that. And how can a media outlet with credibility come up with these lies?
Let's talk about the drought in the Horn of Africa. Eritrea, like all the other countries, is suffering from this. And yet you are reluctant to let aid workers into your country. What is the justification for that?
When we have enough food, why do we need someone to feed us?
Because 2/3 of your population are starving.
Why do people want to spoon feed us when we have enough food?
But then how come 2/3 of the population are not getting that food?
I mean, then again, how can you possibly imagine and say, I am hungry when I'm not hungry? Why do you want to believe that? Why do you want to believe people are hungry and people are in need of your support? Why do you want to believe that? That's a very, very sad state of mind for people who think that they can come and feed people when they're not even in need of feeding. Go and feed the people of the victims of Katrina. Go and feed the people in Haiti if you really want to.
So there's no food or aid problem.
We don't need any food. We can feed ourselves. And I'm bothered. Why do you want to feed us?
How much support do you have in this country? You've been leading it for 18 years. You've been liberated for 20 years. Last year, there was an assassination attempt on your life. Where did that come from, and what do you think was behind that?
Then again, this is another lie. I mean, how can you possibly believe that there was an assassination attempt? Why would you imagine this was there? It never occurred, and it came as a surprise when I was told, I heard that. I said, these people are crazy. They are out of their mind, imagining things that do not exist and fantasizing on what they wish to see. Why do you do that?
You promised Eritreans political reform. There are no political parties other than your own.
I do not promise.
I do
not promise anyone. I do not promise anyone. It's like a very wealthy person who controls everything and promises people that is going to tip them today, tip them tomorrow, tip them next day. We never do promises. The people here don't.
You promised democracy?
No one here promises anybody anything.
You can't even.
There is nothing, there is no commodity called democracy. There is no commodity that is promised by any one person to the people of one country.
Will you allow eventually other political parties to operate? Will you allow the constitution to be released? Will you allow an open political system that is governed by the people?
By the people like in China?
No, the people who will call on government to justify.
It's again, you're assuming that you are talking on behalf of the people of this country. Let the people talk.
I'm asking you how you would define.
The people will have to define it.
Human Rights Watch says you are turning this country into a giant prison and creating a human rights crisis.
You can walk around and see for yourself if that is true. Again, it's a lie.
Why then, if people want to leave the country, do they come under the orders of shoot to kill?
Not at
How
all.
is that justified?
No. If you are telling me every day thousands are leaving this country, how do you think can that happen? If you are telling me hundreds of thousands have asked for asylum, how can you imagine these people have left this country? If you believe that.
Who do you consider your friends?
Where do you mean?
In the world?
The whole world. Yeah. The whole world. Outside liars. A bunch of liars may not be my friends. But the whole world now is behind Eritrea. Everybody is asking, why all these lies? Why this sanction? Why this and that? It's an expression of the support of people. Minimum, you can imagine sensible people asking very simple questions about all the fabrications they hear every day. And that is by way of questioning the credibility of those who are telling the lies, which means it's a support for the one who is being victimized without any evidence. That's very important to remember. And those people who are asking very simple questions are behind Eritrea.
So if you can just tell me a little bit about your aspirations.
We don't need any wars. We have fought for so many decades, and we know what it means to go into war. And it's very senseless to imagine that you can waste your time and resources doing things that do not deserve any penny. We are focused on doing the right things in this country. And we don't need to do it by forcing people to believe this or that. And people are seriously engaged in what they're doing to change their quality of life. Those who've never tried it may fantasize about going to war. We have been there for so many decades, almost 2 generations. At least we will not be like Kenya, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Somalia, Sudan. We are better off. We are number 1 in this continent.